Sarah Chen walked through the crystal corridors of Nexus Prime, her boots clicking against the smooth floor. 23 years had passed since humans first joined the Galaxy Council. 23 years of serving as peacekeepers across 17 different star systems, yet today, something felt wrong. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Council for 8 years now. In that time, she had grown to know the other species well. The tall, crystal-like Vorthon, who spoke in musical tones. The insect-looking Kresh, who moved with perfect coordination. The glowing Luminari, who seemed to float rather than walk. There were 12 other species in the Council, each stranger than the last. But lately, they had been acting differently around her. Conversations would stop when she entered a room. Meetings would be moved without telling her. Important votes would happen when she was mysteriously called away on urgent business. Sarah reached the Great Council Chamber, a massive dome made of some material that showed the stars beyond. The other ambassadors were already seated in their floating chairs, arranged in a perfect circle. She took her place in the human seat, noting how the others seemed to avoid looking at her. Ambassador Chen, spoke Vex Talar, the Vorthan representative. His crystal body rang like a bell when he talked. How are the human peacekeeping forces performing in the outer sectors? Very well, Sarah replied carefully. Admiral Stone reports that trade routes are secure and pirate activity is down 60%. The Kresh ambassador Zik Thron clicked her mandibles together. The humans are indeed efficient at military operations, perhaps too efficient. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in that tone she didn't like. Is there a problem with human forces? No problem at all, said the luminary representative, his light pulsing in what Sarah had learned was their version of a smile. We are simply impressed by human tactical thinking. The meeting continued for 2 hours, covering trade disputes and resource allocation, but Sarah noticed that every topic somehow led back to questions about human military strength, ship designs, or strategic thinking. When she asked about the new defense installations being built in the core systems, the subject was quickly changed. After the meeting ended, Sarah lingered, pretending to review her notes. She watched as the other ambassadors gathered in small groups speaking in hushed tones. When they noticed her still there, they quickly dispersed. Walking back to her quarters, Sarah's mind raced. Something was definitely wrong. She had developed good instincts during her years as a diplomat, and those instincts were screaming danger. Her quarters were in the human section of Nexus Prime, a small area that housed the embassy staff and visiting military officers. Sarah locked her door and activated the privacy shield, then sat down at her computer terminal. She began searching through her files, looking for patterns. Trade agreements that seemed designed to spread human forces thin. Research requests that focused on human technology. Cultural exchange programs that always seemed to involve studying human military history. Then she found it. A data packet that had been misfiled in her system, probably by accident. It was written in Vorthan crystal script, which she had learned to read during her diplomatic training. The file was titled Garden Maintenance Protocol. Sarah's blood ran cold as she translated the contents. The document described humans as an aggressive species with dangerous potential. It outlined how human military tactics were unpredictable and adaptive in ways that threaten galactic stability. Most disturbing of all, it recommended complete removal of the human element from the galactic ecosystem. Sarah kept reading, her hands shaking. The file detailed how the Council had been studying human military operations for years. They had copies of human ship designs, tactical manuals, and strategic databases. They knew the location of every human colony, every fleet position, every weakness in human defenses. The plan was called Pruning the Garden. It would begin with simultaneous strikes on Earth and all human colonies. Human fleets would be destroyed, using their own tactics against them. Within 72 hours, humanity would be extinct. The attack was scheduled to begin in 4 days. Sarah immediately tried to contact Admiral Stone, But her communications were being monitored. Every message she sent was filtered through council systems. She needed to find another way. She remembered the old emergency protocols from her military days, before she became a diplomat. There was a way to send a burst transmission that could bypass normal channels, but it would only work for a few seconds before being detected. Sarah began preparing the message. She encoded it using a simple cipher that any human military officer would recognize. The message had to be short, but clear, enough to convey the danger. As she worked, she heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy footsteps, too heavy to be human. Sarah quickly finished the message and cued it for transmission. Her door chimed. "Ambassador Chen," came a Vorthan voice. "The council requires your immediate presence for an urgent meeting." Sarah's finger hovered over the transmission button. This was it. Once she sent this message, there would be no going back. The council would know she had discovered their plan. "One moment," she called out, trying to keep her voice steady. The footsteps moved closer to her door. Sarah could hear the soft clicking that meant Kresh soldiers were with them. The council had sent their enforcers. Sarah pressed the button. The message shot out through subspace, aimed at the last known position of Admiral Stone's flagship in the Kepler sector. It would take 3 hours to reach him, traveling faster than any council ship could follow. Her door burst open. 3 Kresh soldiers entered first, their insect bodies covered in combat armor. Behind them came Vex Talar and 2 other council ambassadors. "Ambassador Chen," Vex Talar said, his crystal body now glowing red with anger. "You have been accessing classified information." Sarah stood slowly, her hands visible and empty. "I was reviewing trade agreements in preparation for tomorrow's session." "Do not lie to us," clicked Zig Thran as she entered the room. "Our monitoring systems detected unauthorized access to restricted databases." "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Sarah said calmly. Inside, her heart was racing, but she had been trained for situations like this. The Luminari representative floated closer, his light now pulsing an angry orange. "The misunderstanding, Ambassador, was thinking that humans could be trusted with knowledge of galactic governance." "We know you discovered the Garden Protocol," Vex Talar said. "It matters little. The plan is already in motion. Your fleets are too scattered and your colonies too isolated to mount any defense." Sarah smiled despite her fear. "You're probably right. Humans have always been terrible at following plans." The council representatives looked confused by her calm reaction. They didn't understand that sometimes the best plan was no plan at all. Sometimes the smartest thing to do was simply trust your people to figure it out. As the Kresh soldiers moved to arrest her, Sarah thought about Admiral Stone. By now, her message would be racing through space toward him. 3 simple words that would change everything. They know everything. She hoped it would be enough. She hoped Admiral Stone would understand what needed to be done. Most of all, she hoped that humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt and survive, would be enough to save them from the Council's betrayal. The soldiers placed restraints on her wrists, but Sarah wasn't worried about herself anymore. Her job was done. Now it was up to the rest of humanity to do what they did best: survive. Admiral Marcus Stone was reviewing fleet reports in his ready room aboard the UHSN Retribution when the emergency signal came through. The ship's communications officer, Lieutenant Torres, knocked on his door with an urgent expression. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority burst transmission from Nexus Prime. It's using old military encryption, sir." Stone looked up from his datapad. Burst transmissions were risky and expensive. They could only be sent in emergencies, and they burned out communication equipment in the process. "Put it through to my private terminal." Torres nodded and left. Stone activated his secure console and waited for the message to decrypt. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Admiral Stone, Council discovered. Garden Protocol active. Strike imminent 72 hours. Authorization Omega Black. Trust no Council. Assets, Sarah." Stone read the message 3 times, his hands growing steadier with each reading. Sarah Chen would never use Omega Black authorization unless the situation was completely hopeless. It was humanity's most secret protocol, something they had hoped, never to activate. He immediately sealed his ready room and activated the ship's highest security measures. No communication would enter or leave the Retribution without his personal approval. Then he began accessing files that had been locked away for over 2 decades. Omega Black was born from humanity's darkest fears about joining the galactic community. What if the aliens betrayed them? What if humanity found itself alone against the entire galaxy? The protocol was simple in concept but massive in scope. Complete evacuation of all human assets and activation of contingency plans that could keep the species alive in the void between stars. Stone opened his personal safe and removed a data crystal that had been locked away since his promotion to fleet commander. Inside were the locations of secret supply depots, hidden colonies, and emergency rendezvous points scattered throughout unexplored space. More importantly, it contained the command codes for humanity's most classified project. For 23 years while serving as the Council's peacekeepers, humans had been secretly preparing for this day. Supply ships that were supposedly carrying trade goods had been establishing hidden bases in uncharted systems. Scientific expeditions had been scouting safe havens beyond the galaxy's rim. Training exercises had been teaching human crews how to survive without any outside support. Stone activated his quantum communicator, a device that used principles the Council species didn't fully understand. Within minutes, he had secure connections to every human fleet commander, colony administrator, and intelligence operative in known space. Captain Rivera of the UHSN Defiance was the first to respond. Her face appeared on Stone's screen from the Tau sector, where she had been escorting a supply convoy. "Marcus, what's the emergency?" she asked. "My communications officer says you're using Omega Black protocols." "The Council is planning to exterminate humanity," Stone said without preamble. "We have less than 72 hours before they strike. Are you in position to execute Exodus procedures?" Rivera's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. "Understood. My convoy is actually a siege ship carrying civilian families to the outer rim. We can be at Waypoint 7 in 36 hours. Do it. And Rivera, tell your families that this isn't goodbye. It's just a longer journey than we planned." One by one, Stone contacted the other commanders. Commander Park in the Vega sector was escorting what appeared to be mining equipment, but was actually mobile habitat units. Colonel Martinez on the research station in the Centauri Nebula had been cataloging safe jump points for years. Each commander had been preparing for this day without knowing when it would come. The genius of Operation Exodus lay in its simplicity. While the Council species thought in terms of massive fleets and coordinated attacks, humans had learned to think like refugees and survivors. Every human ship had been designed to operate independently for months. Every colony had supplies hidden in multiple locations. Every family had emergency plans that looked like vacation trips. Stone's personal communicator chimed. Governor Walsh appeared on the screen from New Terra, one of humanity's largest colonies. "Admiral, I've received the activation code. How long do we have?" 72 hours at most, Stone replied. "How many people can you evacuate?" "All of them," Walsh said firmly. "We've been running evacuation drills for years under the guise of emergency preparedness. The colonists think it's just another drill. The cargo ships in orbit are actually passenger vessels with their holds converted to life support systems. This was how humans had survived on Earth for millions of years. They prepared for disasters that might never come. They made plans for the worst-case scenario. Other species called it paranoia. Humans called it Tuesday." Stone continued contacting human assets across the galaxy. The trading post on Kepler Station was actually an intelligence hub that had been monitoring Council communications. The agricultural research facility on Proxima 3 was a hidden military base with enough supplies to support a fleet for a year. The diplomatic mission on Vega Prime had been secretly building escape tunnels for 2 decades. Each contact brought the same message. Humans were ready. They had been ready for 23 years. The most difficult call was to Dr. Elizabeth Chen on Luna Base. Sarah's younger sister had been working on what the Council believed was terraforming technology. In reality, She had been developing the tools humanity would need to survive in the empty spaces between stars. Admiral Stone. Elizabeth's face appeared on his screen, and he could see she had been crying. I heard about Sarah. The council news. Services are saying she was arrested for espionage. Your sister saved our entire species, Stone said gently. Without her warning, we would have been caught completely off guard. Elizabeth nodded and wiped her eyes. What do you need from us? Array, the Genesis pods ready for deployment? All 300 of them. Each pod can sustain 1,000 people for 50 years while traveling between stars. The fusion plants are online, the hydroponic bays are fully stocked, and the genetic banks contain samples from every species on Earth. Stone felt a surge of pride. Humanity had spent decades preparing for a war they hoped would never come. Now that it was here, they were as ready as any species could be. His final call was to General Harrison at the Sol Defense Command. The grizzled old soldier appeared on screen from his command bunker buried deep in the asteroid belt. Marcus, I've been monitoring Council fleet movements. They're mobilizing everything they have. This isn't just an attack on humanity, it's going to be complete annihilation. Then we make sure there's nothing left for them to annihilate, Stone replied. How long until the automated systems are ready? 6 hours. Once we activate them, Earth will look like it's putting up a desperate fight. The defense platforms will engage any Council ships that approach, but they're programmed to lose after making the enemy pay a heavy price. Stone nodded. The automated defenses were crucial to the deception. The Council had to believe they were facing a desperate last stand, not a carefully planned evacuation. General, make sure the message pods are properly programmed. When this is over, I want the Council to know exactly why we did what we did. Already done. Every Council species will receive a complete record of their betrayal. Let's see how they explain genocide to their own people. Stone closed the final connection and leaned back in his chair. In the next 60 hours, every human ship would begin what appeared to be routine operations while actually executing the largest evacuation in galactic history. They would scatter like seeds on the solar wind, carrying humanity to the dark spaces where no Council ship would follow. He opened the ship's communication system and activated the old military frequencies that predated contact with alien species. These channels were so primitive that the Council's monitoring systems wouldn't even notice them. Stone took a deep breath and spoke the single word that would save his species. Run. The word run traveled through space at the speed of light, carried on radio frequencies so old that most species had forgotten they existed. It reached human ears across 17 star systems within hours, and everywhere it landed, humanity began to move. Captain Maria Santos was docking her cargo hauler at Kepler Station when she heard the transmission on her emergency channel. Just one word, spoken in Admiral Stone's calm voice, but she understood immediately. She had been waiting 23 years to hear that word. Computer, activate Protocol 7, she said quietly. Protocol 7 activated, the ship's AI responded. All civilian passengers, please report to acceleration couches. We will be departing immediately for an extended journey. The 43 families aboard her ship thought they were taking a vacation cruise to see the famous nebula in the outer rim. They didn't know that Maria's cargo holds were filled with everything needed to start a new colony. They didn't know that their vacation ship had military-grade shields and weapons hidden behind false bulkheads. As Maria plotted her course to waypoint 12, she watched other ships around Kepler Station begin their own mysterious departures. The mining vessel Prospector suddenly finished its repairs and left for new asteroid fields. The research ship Explorer departed early from its survey mission. The passenger liner Star Dream announced a schedule change and headed for the Galactic Edge. None of it looked suspicious. Civilian ships changed plans all the time, but anyone watching carefully would notice that every ship leaving the station happened to be owned by humans. Commander Chen Wei was leading a patrol of 6 human destroyers through the Vega sector when the message reached him. His ships were escorting a Council convoy carrying supplies to a remote outpost. The alien crews trusted their human protectors completely. All ships, this is Commander Chen, he said on a secure frequency. We have new orders. Follow my lead. Chen's Destroyers suddenly developed engine problems that forced them to drop out of hyperspace for emergency repairs. The Council convoy, protected by their own security ships, continued on without them. They would reach their destination safely, never knowing how close they had come to having their escorts vanish forever. Once the convoy was out of sensor range, Chen's ships activated their hidden drive systems and jumped to coordinates that existed on no official star chart. Behind them, they left sensor buoys programmed to broadcast fake distress signals for the next week, making it look like the human ships were still struggling with repairs. Dr. Elizabeth Chen was in her laboratory on Luna Base when her emergency communicator activated. She had been expecting this moment since her sister Sarah first warned her about suspicious council activities months ago. "All personnel, report to evacuation stations," she announced over the base's communication system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The 3,000 scientists and workers on Luna Base moved with practiced efficiency. They had run this evacuation drill hundreds of times, always told it was preparation for solar storms or asteroid impacts. Now they learned the truth as they boarded the colony ships hidden in Luna's deep craters. Elizabeth was the last to leave, making sure the Genesis project data was safely transferred to the evacuation fleet. 23 years of research into creating livable worlds from dead planets, all stored in quantum crystals that would help humanity survive in the empty darkness between stars. As her ship lifted off from Luna's surface, Elizabeth looked back at Earth through the viewports. The planet looked peaceful from space, its blue oceans and white clouds hiding the frantic activity taking place on its surface. Millions of humans were leaving their homes, following evacuation plans they had never known existed. On Mars, the routine maintenance shutdown of the terraforming stations began ahead of schedule. Workers were told that dangerous solar radiation required everyone to shelter in the deep underground bunkers. What they found there were ships that could carry the entire Martian population to safety. The space stations orbiting Jupiter suddenly developed life support problems that required immediate evacuation to specially equipped rescue vessels. The mining operations in the asteroid belt shut down for equipment upgrades that would take several months to complete. Every human facility in the Sol system began its own version of the same story. Technical problems, routine maintenance, emergency drills, schedule changes. Nothing that would alarm the Council observers, but everything needed to move 4 billion humans to safety. Commander Jackson was leading a squadron of human fighters on patrol near the Council's military headquarters when he received the transmission. His 12 ships were part of the defense screen for the most important military installation in the galaxy. The Council trusted them completely. "Red Squadron, we have new orders," Jackson announced on the squadron frequency. "Execute Shadow. Protocol." The fighters suddenly scattered in all directions, their pilots reporting different emergency situations that required immediate attention. Engine failures, navigation problems, medical emergencies, sensor malfunctions. Within minutes, the entire squadron had vanished from the area, heading for rendezvous points in empty space. The Council controllers tried to call them back, but received only automated distress beacons. They sent search and rescue teams to help their human allies, never suspecting that the crashed fighters were already halfway to the galactic rim. Admiral Stone monitored the evacuation from his flagship as it moved through the Kepler sector. His communications center tracked thousands of human ships as they executed the most complex military operation in history. Every ship followed a different route to a different destination, but all were heading for the same goal: survival. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from all sectors," Lieutenant Torres announced. "Operation Exodus is proceeding on schedule. Estimated time to completion, 48 hours. Stone nodded grimly. They were cutting it close. The Council attack was scheduled to begin in less than 72 hours, and some human assets were in remote locations that would take time to reach. "Any problems?" Stone asked. "Some of the civilian populations are asking questions about the sudden evacuations. Colony administrators are telling them it's a Council-mandated safety drill. And they believe it? Most of them. Humans are used to following emergency procedures. 23 years of peace have made people trust that their leaders know what they're doing." Stone felt a stab of guilt about the deception, but it was necessary. If the civilian population knew the truth, some would panic, and some would refuse to leave. The evacuation only worked if everyone followed orders quickly and quietly. His personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from Captain Rivera in the Tau sector. "Admiral, my convoy has reached Waypoint 7 safely. We have 12,000 civilians aboard seed ships disguised as cargo haulers. The colony pods are deploying on schedule." "Excellent work, Captain. Any signs of Council pursuit?" "None. As far as they know, we're delivering mining equipment to a new asteroid field. The fake cargo manifests are holding up perfectly." Stone closed the connection and activated his ship's tactical display. Green lights marked human assets that had successfully evacuated. Yellow lights showed evacuations in progress. Red lights indicated assets still in danger. The yellow lights were turning green one by one as human ships reached safety. But some red lights remained, marking ships and colonies that were too far away or too integrated with Council forces to evacuate quickly. Those people would have to trust in humanity's backup plan, the one that nobody talked about because it was too terrible to consider. If some humans couldn't escape, they would have to disappear in other ways. Stone opened a secure channel to the intelligence operatives scattered throughout Council space. These men and women had spent years building new identities, learning alien languages and preparing to vanish into the galactic underground. "All deep cover assets. This is command," Stone transmitted. "Execute Protocol 0. Full dispersal. Maintain communications blackout for minimum of 2 years." One by one, his agents acknowledged the order. Within hours, they would cease to exist as far as the Council was concerned. They would become traitors, refugees, wanderers, and outcasts. They would disappear into the shadows of galactic civilization, carrying with them the seeds of humanity's eventual return. The evacuation continued through the night and into the next day. Human ships scattered across the galaxy like leaves in a storm, each following its own path to safety. Some headed for the galactic rim, where they could hide in the spaces between stars. Others dove deep into nebulae where sensors couldn't track them. Still others made random jumps into unmapped space, trusting in luck and human adaptability to find new homes. By the time the Council realized what was happening, it was far too late. Humanity had vanished from known space as completely, as if they had never existed at all. All that remained were automated systems and the echo of a single word: run. 3 days after Admiral Stone's evacuation order, the Council fleet arrived at Earth expecting to find a desperate enemy preparing for a final battle. Instead, they found empty space stations and automated defense platforms that fired on them. With mechanical precision, Admiral Zeth Corvain of the Vorthon Navy commanded the assault fleet from his crystal ship, the Harmony of Spheres. He had been planning this attack for months, studying human tactics and preparing for fierce resistance. What he found confused him. "Why are their defenses so predictable?" he asked his tactical officer. "The humans usually adapt their strategies. During battle, these platforms are following simple defensive patterns. Perhaps they are saving their strength for a final desperate assault," suggested Commander Yilthes. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Council fleet destroyed every human defense platform, disabled the orbital stations, and cleared the space around Earth. They prepared for the surface invasion, expecting to face billions of desperate humans fighting for their homeworld. Instead, they found cities that hummed with activity but contained no people. Automated systems kept the lights on and the transportation networks running. Holographic displays showed crowds of humans in public spaces, but they were just recordings playing on endless loops. "The planet appears to be abandoned," reported the ground assault commander. "We are finding no human life signs anywhere on the surface." Admiral Zeth Corvain stared at Earth through his ship's viewports. The blue and green planet looked exactly as it always had, but something was terribly wrong. "Continue searching, they must be hiding somewhere." The search teams found something else instead. In the ruins of the Human Military Command Center, they discovered a single active communication terminal. It was broadcasting a message on all frequencies, repeated in every known galactic language. Admiral Stone's voice filled the Council command ships with calm certainty. "To the members of the Galactic Council," the recording began, If you are receiving this message, then you have successfully carried out your plan to exterminate humanity. Congratulations. You have joined a very special group. The council commanders looked at each other in confusion. What did he mean by special group? You see, Stone's voice continued, we know about your previous operations, the ones you don't talk about in your official histories. We know about the architects. Admiral Zeth Corvain felt his crystal body grow cold. The architects were mentioned only in the most classified council archives. An ancient species that had built magnificent cities across the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing 3,000 years ago. We found their ruins on dead worlds throughout this galaxy, Stone said. We also found their final messages hidden in quantum storage devices that the Council never thought to look for. They wrote about being welcomed into the galactic community, about serving as peacekeepers, about discovering a conspiracy among the Council species. The recording paused, and in that silence, every Council officer began to understand what they were hearing. The architects called it pruning the garden. The same name you used for your plan to exterminate us. They were integrated into Council forces, studied carefully, and then eliminated when they became too dangerous to control. Stone's voice grew harder. We also know about the Wanderers, the species you claimed died in a plague 700 years ago. We found their ships drifting in deep space, their crews killed by Council weapons. Their computers contained records of the same pattern: integration, study, elimination. Admiral Zeth Corvain activated his communication system and sent an emergency message to the Council headquarters. This recording must be classified immediately. If other species hear this. The singers lasted only 200 years in the Council, Stone continued. Their beautiful music still echoes in certain nebulae, but the singers themselves were exterminated when they developed technology that made Council weapons obsolete. The list continued. The builders, who created the great space stations. The dreamers, who developed faster-than-light communication. The gardeners, who could make any planet bloom with life. 7 different species, all welcomed into the Council, all studied, all eliminated when they became inconvenient. Do you want to know what we found in the deepest Council archives? Stone asked. We found records showing that the current Council members are not the original founders of galactic civilization. They are the survivors of the first great pruning, the species that were useful enough to keep alive but not creative enough to be dangerous. This was the most devastating revelation of all. The proud Council species, who claimed to be the ancient guardians of galactic peace, were themselves the products of genocide. They had been shaped by fear and control, taught to eliminate anything that might threaten the established order. You maintain galactic peace by preventing galactic progress, Stone said. Every time a species develops something truly new, you study it, steal it, and then eliminate the creators. You are not guardians of civilization. You are its undertakers. Admiral Zeth Corvain tried to shut off the transmission, but it was being broadcast from multiple sources throughout human space. Even worse, it was being picked up by communication networks throughout the galaxy. But here is what you failed to understand about humanity, Stone continued. We are not builders or dreamers or singers. We are survivors. We have been preparing for this betrayal since the day we joined your Council. We knew that sooner or later you would decide we were too dangerous to live. The recording switched to tactical displays showing the human evacuation. Council officers watched in amazement as thousands of human ships scattered across the galaxy with perfect coordination. While you were studying our military tactics, we were studying your psychology. You think in terms of control and elimination. We think in terms of adaptation and survival. You plan to destroy us. We plan to disappear. The displays showed human colonies being evacuated, fleets dispersing into empty space, and entire populations vanishing without a trace. By the time you hear this message, every human in known space will be gone. Not dead, gone. We have scattered like seeds on the stellar wind, carrying with us everything we need to grow and prosper in the darkness between stars. Admiral Zeth Corvain realized the magnitude of their failure. The Council had planned to eliminate humanity to prevent them from becoming a threat. Instead, They had driven humanity into the unknown regions of space with all their knowledge, technology, and burning desire for revenge. You wanted to prune the garden, Stone said. Instead, you have planted it throughout the galaxy. In 50 years, in 100 years when you least expect it, humanity will return, and we will not be alone. The recording showed images of other species thought to be extinct, architect ruins that showed signs of recent habitation, wanderer ships with human crews, Singer technology being adapted for human use. We found them, Stone said simply. The survivors of your previous operations, hidden colonies, refugee fleets, scattered populations that escaped your genocides. They have been waiting in the dark spaces for someone strong enough to challenge you. The final image was of Admiral Stone himself, standing on the bridge of his flagship as it jumped into hyperspace. You gave us a choice between submission and death. We chose a third option. We chose freedom. Every species you have eliminated chose that option, and now we are all choosing it together. The transmission ended with coordinates for 17 different locations throughout the galaxy. When Council scout ships investigated, they found the same thing at each location. Abandoned human facilities with messages carved into the walls in dozens of different languages. The messages were simple and identical. We remember. We survive. We return. Admiral Zeth Corvain sat in his command chair staring at Earth, the empty planet that had once been humanity's home. The humans were gone, but their message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species were beginning to ask questions about the mysterious disappearances in galactic history. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving inquiries from 17 different species asking about the human transmission. They want to know if the allegations about the pruning operations are true. Tell them it is Council. Military information and cannot be discussed, Zeth Corvain ordered. Sir, the Centauri Assembly is demanding access to the historical archives. The Rigel Confederation is calling for an emergency session of the full council. Zeth Corvain cut off the report with a gesture. The council's greatest fear had been realized. Not only had humanity escaped their trap, but they had revealed the council's darkest secrets to the entire galaxy. For 3,000 years, the council had maintained peace through fear and control. Now that peace was shattered, and somewhere, in the darkness between stars, humanity was preparing for their return. The hunt was about to begin. 18 months after the Great Disappearance, the galaxy had changed in ways the Council never expected. What began as a simple extermination operation had become their worst nightmare. Admiral Zeth Corvain stood in the Council war room on Nexus Prime, staring at a tactical display that showed their rapidly shrinking sphere of influence. Red markers indicated systems where Council authority had collapsed. Yellow markers showed systems in rebellion. Green markers, representing stable Council territory, grew fewer each day. Report, he ordered his intelligence chief. Commander Yil Thess activated her holographic display. 17 major trade routes have been disrupted in the past month. The humans are not attacking our ships directly. Instead, they are destroying communication relays, navigation beacons, and supply depots. Any casualties? None. The attacks are surgical. They disable our infrastructure but avoid killing our personnel. It is almost as if they want us to spread word of their capabilities, rather than fear for our lives. Zeth Corvain understood the strategy now. The humans were not waging a war of conquest. They were demonstrating their reach, their precision, and their patience. Every disabled relay station sent the same message. We can strike anywhere, anytime, and you cannot stop us. What about our search efforts? Unsuccessful. We have deployed 60% of our fleet searching for human colonies. We have found nothing but empty space and sensor ghosts. Either they have developed stealth technology beyond our understanding, or they have gone farther than we thought possible. The truth was even worse than Yil Thess suspected. The humans had not just hidden themselves, they had weaponized their disappearance. Every Council ship sent to hunt for them was a ship that could not protect Council territory. Every resource spent on the search was a resource not available for maintaining their control over the galaxy. "Sir," interrupted a communication technician, "we are receiving reports of uprisings in the Vega sector. 3 planetary governments have declared independence from the Council." "What are their demands?" Zeth Corvain asked, though he already knew the answer. "Access to the historical archives, full disclosure of all pruning operations, trials for war crimes against extinct species." It was the same pattern across the galaxy. The human revelation had shattered the Council's carefully maintained image as benevolent peacekeepers. Species that had served the Council for centuries now questioned everything they had been told about galactic history. Zeth Corvain's personal communicator chimed with an urgent message from the Outer Rim. He activated the hologram and saw Captain Velcorin of the patrol vessel Starlight Harmony. "Admiral, we have encountered something unusual near the Horsehead Nebula. You need to see this." The transmission switched to external cameras showing a massive structure floating in space. It was clearly artificial, built from materials that seemed to shift and change in the starlight. The design was unlike anything in Council databases. "What is it?" Zeth Corvain asked. "We believe it is an architect station, sir, but it shows signs of recent construction. Someone has been rebuilding their technology." The camera panned to show other vessels docked with the station. Ships that combined architect crystal construction with wanderer energy patterns and Singer harmonic resonance. And at the center of the formation, unmistakably human vessels with their angular, aggressive design. They are not just hiding, Zeth Corvain realized. They are building alliances. The humans had done more than escape. They had found the scattered survivors of the Council's previous genocides and united them into something new. The extinct species were extinct no more. A new voice came over the communication channel, speaking in perfect Vorthan crystal speech. "Greetings, Admiral Zeth Corvain. I am Kith Viran, Architect Coordinator of the Free Alliance." Zeth Corvain's crystal body resonated with shock. The architects had been extinct for 3,000 years. Yet here was one of them, speaking as if the genocide had happened yesterday. "You are supposed to be dead," he said. "Dead?" The architect's laughter chimed like breaking glass. "We are architects. We build for eternity. Did you think we would not plan for our own survival?" The communication shifted to show the interior of the station. Thousands of beings moved through crystal corridors, architects rebuilding their great works, wanderers sharing their nomadic technologies, singers creating new harmonies that could heal damaged minds, and everywhere among them, humans. Not as conquerors or leaders, but as partners, in a grand alliance of the supposedly extinct. "The humans found us," Keth Viran continued, scattered, hiding, afraid. "They showed us something we had forgotten, the strength that comes from standing together against oppression." Admiral Stone appeared on the transmission, older and more weathered than when he had disappeared 18 months ago. "Admiral Zeth Corvain, I told you we would return. I never said we would return alone." "What do you want?" Zeth Corvain asked. "The same thing we have always wanted. The right to exist. The right to grow. The right to be different without being eliminated." Stone gestured to the beings around him. "The Council has spent 3,000 years pruning the garden, removing any species that showed too much creativity or independence. You have created a galaxy of frightened servants and stagnant technologies." "We maintained peace. You maintained control," Stone corrected. "There is a difference. Peace allows for growth and change. Control prevents both." The transmission shifted to show other stations throughout the galaxy. Dozens of them, each combining the technologies of supposedly extinct species with human adaptability and determination. "We offer the Council a choice," Stone said. "The same choice you gave us. Submit to judgment for your crimes, or face the consequences of your actions. You cannot defeat the entire Council military," Zeth Corvain protested. "We don't need to defeat you," Stone replied. "We just need to outlast you." The truth of that statement became clear over the following months. The Free Alliance did not attack Council worlds directly. Instead, they offered sanctuary to any species that wanted to leave Council control. They shared their combined technologies freely with anyone who asked. Most devastating of all, they told the truth about galactic history to anyone who would listen. Species that had served the Council faithfully for centuries learned about the systematic elimination of their potential allies and friends. They discovered that the plagues and civil wars that had destroyed other civilizations were actually Council pruning operations. Within a year, the Council's authority had crumbled, not through military conquest, but through the simple power of truth. Their member species simply stopped obeying orders from leaders they could no longer trust. The final confrontation came when the Free Alliance surrounded the last Council stronghold on Nexus Prime. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, now accompanied by vessels from a dozen supposedly extinct species. Admiral Zeth Corvain, his forces reduced to a handful of loyal ships, received Stone's final transmission. "We offer you the same mercy you offered the architects," Stone said, "the same compassion you showed the wanderers, the same consideration you gave the singers." "Which is none at all," Zeth Corvain said bitterly. "Which is the chance to run," Stone corrected. "Take your ships and go. Find some empty corner of the galaxy where you can build something new, learn to create instead of destroy. And if we refuse," Stone's expression was unreadable, "then you will face the judgment of every species you tried to eliminate." 7. Different civilizations have very long memories and very creative ideas about justice. Zeth Corvain looked around his bridge at his remaining officers. They had served the Council faithfully, believing they were maintaining galactic peace. Now they learned they had been the instruments of genocide. "All ships," he ordered, "prepare for departure." "Where are we going, Admiral?" asked Commander Yilthes. "Away," Zeth Corvain said simply. "Far away." The Council fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for the empty regions beyond the galactic rim. Behind them, they left a galaxy forever changed. Admiral Stone watched them go from his bridge, surrounded by the representatives of species that were supposed to be extinct. Earth appeared on the main view screen, blue and green and beautiful. "Admiral?" asked Captain Rivera. "Are we going home?" Stone smiled for the first time in 2 years. "We are home. All of us. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy is free to grow and change and become whatever it chooses to be." The ships of the Free Alliance spread out across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as gardeners. They planted new colonies, shared new technologies, and welcomed any species that wanted to join their alliance. The age of the Council was over. The age of true galactic civilization had begun, and in the deep archives of Nexus Prime, now open to all species, the final entry in the pruning protocol files contained just 4 words: "The garden has bloomed."